Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. I mean, the name alone, right? It just conjures up all these images. Crashed saucers, alien bodies, shadowy government cover-ups. It's got to be one of the most persistent mysteries of our time. But to really get why the story has such a powerful, unshakable grip on our imagination, we might need to look at a completely different kind of blueprint. And it all started right here, July 8th, 1947. The local Roswell paper drops an absolute bombshell that's going to echo for decades. The headline read, "The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found." Just like that, the story was out. And once it was out, there was absolutely no putting that genie back in the bottle. And honestly, that's the real question here. I mean, the official story changed from a flying disc to a weather balloon in less than 24 hours. So after all these decades of official reports, debunkings, documentaries, you name it, why does this one story refuse to die? What if the answer isn't buried deep in some government vault, but was actually written in the stars all along? Right, so to get to the bottom of why the Roswell myth is so sticky, we're not going to be digging through declassified files. No, we're looking at a completely different kind of blueprint, one that was laid out in the cosmos on the very day that story broke. And the key we're going to use to unlock this is, it's an ancient one. We're going to do a Vedic astrological analysis of the cosmos on that specific day, July 8th, 1947. We're basically going to explore what the sky itself might have been trying to tell us as this bizarre new story crashed into our world. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with it, jyotisha, or Vedic astrology, is this incredibly ancient system from India. And look, it's not just about your daily personal horoscope. Think of it more like a symbolic language that's used to interpret the deeper meaning, the karmic signature of major events, all based on where the planets were at that exact moment. So for our analysis, this date is absolutely crucial. And let's be clear, we're not talking about the day something might have actually crashed. We're talking about the day the story was born. This is its symbolic birthday, you could say. It's the moment it officially entered our collective consciousness. Okay, so let's dive in and look at what we could call the planets of chaos. These are the placements that really describe the immediate situation. That crazy media frenzy, the public's reaction, and that huge wave of confusion that just swept the world. First up, we've got the sun. In astrology, the sun represents the core identity of an event. And where was it? It was in the sign of Gemini. Now, Gemini is all about communication, news, messages, the media. So this aligns just perfectly with the Roswell chaos, doesn't it? The sun in Gemini points to an event that's completely driven by a news story, a sudden, shocking revelation, which is then followed by widespread, immediate misunderstanding. From this astrological viewpoint, it's like the textbook signature for a massive communication breakdown. Okay, next up, let's look at the moon. The moon represents the collective emotional reaction, how the public feels about something. And on this day, the moon was in fiery, impulsive Aries. This points directly to the public's state of mind. We're not talking about a slow, rational, considered reaction here. No way. This was a flash of collective shock, alarm, and a whole lot of excitement. That Aries energy just perfectly captures the feeling of a sudden, dramatic event, literally falling out of the sky. Now let's move on to Mercury, the planet of information and communication. On this day, Mercury was in the sign of Cancer, which is all about emotion, memory, and the past. So what does that mean? It means the information about Roswell wasn't being processed logically or rationally. It was being processed emotionally. The astrology here suggests this story was practically destined to bypass our logical brains and embed itself directly into our cultural memory, becoming this huge foundational myth. Okay, so we've got the initial chaos covered, and now let's see how the plot thickens. We're going to look at the planets that govern things like military action, government authority, and those deep, dark secrets that would come to define the whole Roswell legacy. And this next one, this is a big one. Mars, the planet of the military and assertive action, was in the sign of Cancer. Now, in Vedic astrology, that's a sign where Mars is considered debilitated or weakened. Basically, its energy comes out all wrong. It's awkward, it's ineffective. A debilitated Mars is the classic signature for, a botched operation. It points directly to confused military actions, those contradictory statements, announcing a disc and then immediately taking it back, and these really clumsy attempts to control the narrative. It's basically a perfect astrological description of a cover-up that just created way more questions than it answered. But now, here's the counterpoint. You've got Saturn, the planet of authority, structure, and control, and it was in the powerful, commanding sign of Leo, the sign of kings and rulers. So you can see this cosmic tension playing out. On one hand, you have a weak Mars totally fumbling the details. But on the other, you have a strong Saturn stepping in to impose a single, rigid, official narrative. This creates the central conflict of the whole Roswell story, the government's official version versus the public's wild imagination. It's a symbolic battle that cemented this event in pop culture forever. And that brings us to what might be the most powerful part of this whole chart, the karmic axis, which are the points of Rahu and Ketu. Now, an easy way to think about this is that Rahu represents the exotic, the foreign, the unknown, literally materializing in our world. And Ketu represents the deep, hidden secrets. So, in July 1947, Rahu was in Taurus, the sign of physical things, of matter, pointing to a mysterious physical object. At the exact same time, Ketu was in Scorpio, the sign of deep secrets, investigations, and cover-ups. I mean, you just could not write a more perfect astrological blueprint for a UFO myth. It's all right there. Okay, one final piece of this cosmic puzzle really locks this whole story in place for the long haul. Jupiter, which is the planet of truth and understanding, was retrograde in the sign of Libra, the sign of balance and justice. Now, when a planet is retrograde, it basically means its energy is turned inward, which leads to constant review, revision, and reevaluation. This one single placement might just explain why the Roswell story is never settled. It perfectly accounts for that endless cycle of reinvestigation, the new witnesses that suddenly emerged in the 70s, the new official reports in the 90s, and that perpetual tug of war between the official truth and the alternative truth. So, when we put all these cosmic pieces together on the board, what does this Vedic reading actually tell us? What's the ultimate verdict here on what Roswell truly represents? Well, from a Vedic perspective, Roswell wasn't just some random, bizarre incident. It was more like a destined, collective, karmic event. Its astrological chart contains the perfect blueprint to do a few things. First, to introduce humanity to a whole new era of technological mystery. Second, to create that durable cultural archetype of the government's secret or cover-up. And finally, to become the founding myth for the entire modern UFO phenomenon. Which kind of leaves us with a fascinating thought, doesn't it? What if the real, enduring power of Roswell isn't about figuring out what actually fell from the sky that day? What if it's really about understanding the powerful, symbolic story that was written for us in the cosmos? A story that, let's be honest, we are all clearly still trying to figure out.